Let's take a look at getting Resolve downloaded, installed, and do a few things to set it up so that it's going to work well for you every time you turn it on. So we're going to go to blackmagicdesign.com, and you can scroll through this and eventually you'll find DaVinci Resolve and download link. But I'm going to instead go to the support tab up at the top, and that will take us to the support page. I'm going to then click on DaVinci Resolve Fusion software, and you might not have noticed what changed. That's because this is a little strange design here, but what changed is below, and depending on what screen you have, what screen resolution and whatnot, you might not notice that there was something that changed. But below, in latest downloads, I see DaVinci Resolve and DaVinci Resolve Studio. So DaVinci Resolve 19.1 in this case is the free version, and DaVinci Resolve Studio 19.1 is the paid version. I am going to download the paid version since that's what I have. There's Mac version, Linux version, Windows x86, and Windows ARM. I'm going to grab x86 because that's what I've got, and up pops the registration page. If you have the studio version, you can hit this download only link. If you're getting the free version, you have to type something in. They give you the link right away. They don't need a valid email. If you don't want to put your information out there, you just fill this in with garbage. And here where it says which features should we add, the ability to download the free version without having to register. But I'm going to hit download only because I've got the studio version. And it will begin the download. It might take a hot minute, depending on your internet connection. So once it's done downloading, you undip it into its own folder. We'll go into that folder and hit install. And again, we wait while it extracts. So the install utility gives you a few options. You'll see here that DaVinci Resolve, of course, is selected by default. So is DaVinci Control Panel, which is the software needed to run like the speed editor or the micro color panel. I tend to, even if you don't have any of the hardware here, I would leave DaVinci Control Panels selected because it doesn't take that much space. And later on, if you do get some of that hardware, you might not remember where you need to install this stuff from. So I keep that checked. DaVinci Resolve OpenFX Renderer. There are some free third-party plugins that use that, so I also tend to install that. But the Fairlight Audio Accelerator utility is hardware that is specific to making audio work better on a computer. And if you need that, you're not watching this video. So leave that unchecked, and we'll go ahead and hit install. And yes, we wait again. Let's do a little audience participation here. The default location for it is fine. Go ahead and tell it to go. And we wait yet again. We'll go ahead and finish. Installation complete. Now we should be able to start DaVinci Resolve. Now I have the studio version, so it is going to prompt me for the license key, which I have a picture of on my phone. So I'm just going to type that in real quick. Now you only need to do this once when you're installing Resolve for the first time. When you upgrade, it doesn't usually prompt you for your license key. And with each license key, you get 2 installations, so like a desktop and a laptop. It doesn't apply to the iPad, which Resolve for iPad is a different app, so you have to purchase that separately. So if you have a decent graphics card, it may ask you to optimize the neural engine stuff. I would say go ahead and do that if you have the time, but I'm going to skip it at the moment because it takes forever. And this is what will show up when you start Resolve for the first time. You have a local database with nothing in it. Resolve keeps all of its projects in its own database format. You can export it from here to other formats. You can archive, you can backup, you can restore. There's a few things you can do with the database system that you can't do with just like having a file someplace in your folder structure. And the main thing with Resolve, as you can see over here, a cloud option, which I'll get into more later, but it allows people to collaborate very inexpensively. For example, I pay a little fee for some cloud space, and then I share a project library on the Blackmagic cloud, and up to 30, I think, editors can work on that project. If I give them access, they can use the free version of Resolve, and they don't need to pay anything for their account. So only one person pays, and everybody else can collaborate, which for some of the kinds of things that we're doing, is pretty important. So we'll get into that later, but for now, let's go ahead and start a new project. We'll call it Getting Started. And I want to go over a few quick setup things to make using Resolve a little bit easier. So if we go to the File menu and then Project Settings, you'll see in the Master Settings over in Timeline Resolution that we're working in HD. I tend to keep it that way. I don't work in 4K most of the time, unless I'm doing something for like a documentary or something that I want to do in 4K. For the most part, if it's community stuff, 1080 is going to be fine, so we'll leave it there. But here in Timeline Frame Rate, you'll see that Resolve defaults to 24 frames per second, which is considered a cinematic frame rate. It's the same frame rate that movie cameras use, or used to use, film cameras. And that's 24 pictures per second. Television, and or in the States at least, television tends to run at 30 frames per second, or more accurately, 29.97. There are reasons it's such a weird number. They're complex and technical and largely irrelevant these days, from the broadcast days. But I tend to still work in 29.97 because the fancy cameras that I use also tend to record in 29.97. If you're filming on a phone, you might use 30. Which one you use isn't really super important, but just be aware that it defaults to 24, and that might not be what you want. Now we can save this, and this project will be in 29.97, but if we go up to this little 3-button menu here, you can see Save Current Settings as Default Preset. Yep. I will do that because I don't want to have to change this to 29.97 every single time I open it up. We'll go ahead and save that, and let's head over to the Media page. Now here on the Media page, you see all of the hard drives that I have attached to this computer. I've got my system drive, and I tend to keep all of my assets, all of my video, audio, special effects, pictures, that kind of thing, under the Assets folder. And inside the Assets folder, I sort by project or date, or you can sort these a variety of ways. People have very different opinions on that. But I have one folder, Assets, under which all of that other organization happens. So if you look over here on my external SSD, I also have an Assets folder with a great deal more stuff in it. And here's why we have that Assets master folder. So let's take from Assets, let's take Summer Thanksgiving Prep 2024, which I just filmed a couple of days ago, and drag it down to the master folder. I do not want to change the frame rate. I shot most of this in 120 so that I could slow it down really nicely, but I don't want to change the project frame rate to 120. So I'm going to say don't change. I already set it to 29.97. I'm going to leave it there. Now I'm going to go to the File menu, Project Settings, and down at the bottom on the left here is Path Mapping. And I'm going to add Local Disk C and Assets. I'm not going to go all the way down to the Summer Thanksgiving Prep 2024 folder. I just want to use Assets. So now, if I select that folder, you see that there's a location that shows up here in the path mapping, along with an invitation to browse for where to find that folder. Here's why that's important. I will no doubt take this footage off of my expensive fast hard drive and put it someplace else, like a slow hard drive for archiving. I can still get to it if it is under the Assets folder. I would then hit Browse in the project, go find the Assets folder on the slow drive, and connect it, and then it will work without me having to go and find each file individually, or each folder individually. It's a pretty handy little tool, and that's why, however else I organize things, it all starts with a folder of the same name. Let's save that. So now let's set up a few little niceties inside Resolve that'll make getting around and working a little bit easier. I'm going to go to the Edit page here, and you see down here at the bottom there is a Smart Bins section. Smart bins are a way of kind of collecting your footage in different ways other than folders that you may have brought in off the hard drive. So to demonstrate this, I'm just going to randomly create some timelines. Create timelines. And as you can see, inside this list, the timelines just sort of vanish. They're sort of hard to see. You have to kind of look at the icon really carefully. There's a way of using smart bins to get all your timelines in one place, but it doesn't show up by default. To make it show up, we're going to go to Preferences, switch from System to User, and go to the Editing option. And here towards the top is Smart Bins for Timelines. If you select that, you'll see Timelines show up as a Smart Bins option. And there you have only your timelines from that project. It's a handy way to kind of find, especially as a project gets larger, you might have a variety of different ideas that you were trying, and they kind of end up in weird places. So that's a great way to find all of your timelines all at once. Now, there's another handy feature, which is called Power Bin. And a Power Bin is a bin that you bring into your project that will then be in every other project in that project library. It also doesn't show up by default. To make it show up, we're going to go to this little 3-button menu here and show Power Bin. So now Power Bin shows up along the side and there's nothing in there yet. So we're going to go back to the media page to put something there. And what I will put there is on my mobile drive, inside Assets, I have a Storyblocks folder that has music in it that I downloaded from a site that has a subscription, but you can download footage and music that you can use. So let's pretend I want to have that in all the projects that I'm working on, so I can quickly get to the B-roll that I bought. So we just drag it down to Power Bins, and now these files will show up ready to go. I don't have to go find them again. So those are a few little things that'll help you get started and rolling inside DaVinci Resolve, make it a little bit easier to use. There's a few little tricks that it has up its sleeve, basically, that you might not know about right out of the gate. There's, of course, a whole lot more. I've already got a couple of editing videos, and we'll be going more in depth into kind of how that process works, and more importantly, why certain editing decisions are made that way. But for now, that's just getting started look at it, and thanks for coming along for the ride. See you next time.